In last week's Parsha Torah portion of Noach, there's a very important and pertinent message that resonates with us even in this week's Torah portion as well. The Torah delineates all of what would be or constitute civilization, all of the names of the various heads of families who had children and would establish future familial relationships for the future of civilization at the time. And one of the people who is delineated is called Ashur. The Torah says, Umin ha'aretz hahi yatzar Ashur. Ashur decided that he would leave and depart his particular portion of land, his city that he had lived in together with his children. And Rashi says, why does the Torah tell us that Ashur decided to leave? He decided to leave because he saw that his own children, his own kin, were rebelling. They were joining the forces of Nimrod, and Ashur decided that he wanted to have nothing to do with this, and so he abandoned his family, including his own children. The Torah tells us, on the other hand, with regards to Avram Avinu, who did not necessarily, certainly did not see eye to eye with the beliefs or faiths or lack of them thereof of his father Terach and Terach's following generations. Nonetheless, when Avram decided that he would leave his home place of Ur Kasdim or Haran, depending on which opinion or commentary you follow, Avram decides that it's time for him to get up and go. And the Torah tells us that Terach, his father, even though he did not necessarily subscribe to Avram's beliefs and philosophies, he followed his son Avram in suit. Vayavo Terach arza Canaan. Terach picks himself up and says, I will not abandon my child. I will not abandon my children or my familial relationships. As opposed to Ashur, who may have been or believed that he was being altruistic in the fact that he was leaving his children because they were rebelling with Nimrod. Nonetheless, he decides to leave and abandon his family, and Rashi tells us this for a reason. He tells us this because what Rashi is teaching us is a family member, a child certainly, should never, ever be abandoned, even if the parent or in the parental view sees the child as rebelling. That does not warrant whatsoever the right, license, or permit to be able to abandon one's child. Children should never and can never be abandoned. Familial relationships are what we have that bind us together, that give us the strength and fortuitous relationships that enable us to perpetuate a future. The moment that we abandon them is the moment that we have no reason for ourselves to continue to live. And Rashi tells us this, that Ashur was absolutely wrong in doing so. As opposed to Terach, who might have been an idol worshiper, but he nonetheless understood the institution of a family. I cannot abandon my child. I don't agree with them. I don't see eye to eye to them, but that certainly does not warrant my ability to leave them and to go elsewhere. No, my way is to follow the way of my children and my future of my family, because that institution has to remain steadfast and can never be compromised. For this reason, it's possible for us to understand that in this week's Parsha, when Avram suggests to his nephew Lot, who really is essentially Avram's son. Lot sees Avram as his mentor, his guide, his father. Avram tells Lot, you and I have to part ways. When I go right, you go left, and vice versa. And we'll split the land as such for our shepherds and our herds. Perhaps the Torah comes to tell us that Avram was wrong in doing this. Perhaps even a person like Lot, who Avram might not have felt that his shepherds or his shepherding ways were correct. Nonetheless, a person should never be abandoned by his familial patron. A person should never be left alone. They always have to be embraced and continue to be together. And I think this is a very, very essential point that the Torah is teaching us. How terrible when I reflect upon the amount of times that Gila was experiencing pain. And nonetheless, we as parents, or certainly myself, There were times that I expressed frustration, even directly to her. Gili, I don't know what else I can do. Or, Gili, even worse, you're driving me crazy. That might be true, but someone certainly who is suffering and trying to find themselves and looking for direction, or for love for that matter, certainly should never feel that they are abandoned. You might be driving me crazy, you might be frustrating me, you might be hurting me, and I might not necessarily choose to subscribe with your beliefs. But believe me, as a parent, I will never, ever abandon you. There are so many teens and so many young ones out there who look and behave different, and who do not necessarily choose the path that their parents may have laid out in front of them. They don't necessarily subscribe or write the script that their parents would have chosen for them. But nonetheless, parental obligation is we never abandon them. We embrace them. We love them in an uncompromised and unswerved allegiance with that love and understanding and care and empathy. That is something that always has to remain constant. That is what the Torah is reminding us here. It is the Torah way, the familial way. It is the Gila way. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you once again for joining us. Please remember to consider subscribing to the page below and send me your comments. I will get back to you. Have a great day.